credentials as well to come and share at the bootcamp. So it's such an honor inviting Beatrice here today. I'm so excited. Hello, ma'am. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Great. I'm
Lovely
so
to see
honored
you.
having you here today. You look
No, don't say.
beautiful.
I'm so happy, and I have to say, there's such a good vibe in this call. I love it. It's the best call I've had all day. So thank you so much for having
Great.
me.
Great. So we're looking forward to your section. Just glide through anyhow you want. And we're here. I'm sure that we're also streaming to YouTube. So some people are watching via YouTube, while some people are here as well. Thank you so much. All right,
Sure.
over to you, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me. As Victoria was saying, when we discussed a bit about this conference, I was really excited to try to help. And my background is on the banking side and on oil and gas, so it's quite a specific background, which might not be a lot of interest for a lot of you. But then we started thinking about what is that. We started to think, okay, let's try to think about away from your specific sector and kind of how did you develop certain skills to be able to interact with people? And, at the end of the day, whatever you do, social interaction is an extremely important part of it. So I have to say, Victoria, you gave me such a challenge on this one, because I was talking to some of my colleagues this month, and I was thinking, emotional intelligence, all of us can think about what emotion are, what intelligence is, but how do we put the emotional intelligence and how do we apply it to client relation? It's been a bit of a struggle, I have to say, to kind of think about it and kind of try to present it to you the way I think about it, because a lot of them, they kind of think about emotion is that they are natural, right? You can't really train them. So to try to tell you how you get on with clients and how you build relationship, it required for me a big step back and really trying to think about what maybe is coming natural after all this time. But so thank you very much, Victoria, for this, because you really made me think quite a lot. So let's see if anything I say makes sense. Again, I'm an econometrician by background, so my background is very scientific. But I'm here to talk to you about something which is related to emotion and social skills, right? And I don't have, let's say, any training regarding that. And everything I'm going to talk about is really what I have learned in my job. As your colleague mentioned, I have been in banking for 10 years, always looking after client relation. And now I'm looking after a lot of our clients in Europe and in the US, right? So it's very important. And, one thing that for sure I've learned is that it's always very important to listen. Listen is like really the main thing. And also to listen and look and try to really understand what the person that you have in front. And as I was saying in my bio, everybody's very different and everybody has a lot of things to teach to anybody else, right? So if you start any relation with this kind of frame of mind, then it becomes much easier and much better to really have a meaningful conversation, right? I've tried to kind of summarize in few bullets, and I've kind of tried to look at around a lot of more experts than me about how they think about emotional intelligence, how they think about social skill, and I quite like some material that I've learned about, and they really break it down into 6 major points. And then what I've done is kind of like think about the 6 major points and make them mine, in sense of, okay, how can I look at this point, and what does my experience tell me about this point? And then that's what I'm going to try to bring to you today. But please interact me at any point. I mean, we're talking about social skills, so we're talking about something which is all about interaction and how you present yourself. So I hope I come across very welcoming enough for you to interrupt me at any point, because really at the end of the day, as I was saying, listening, conversation is the core points into really building and to really building relationships. So what I'm going to, as Victoria said, emotional intelligence and how you use it to make relationship with client. I mean, for a very long part of my life, I had to say that I didn't really think emotional intelligence was real intelligence. My intelligence was IQ, right? I mean, I'm a mathematician of background, so it's black and white and gray. It doesn't exist. So there's always one thing or the other. But actually, emotional intelligence is very, very important in any sort of social skill. So whether you are doing something very, very scientific or something very artistic, the way that you present yourself is so very important. So I think we'll start. The first thing that I think we should start with is about self-awareness as not in first point. So how your action and your behavior affects other people, right? So for example, if you enter into a room looking very, very defensive, see, like kind of your shoulders back down and looking very, very defensive and very with a lot of demure, that, it really does not invite for a meaningful conversation, right? It kind of puts everybody in a bit of a defensive mood. But if you enter a room, right, I'm not saying that you have to enter with like super proud, but if you enter a room with a smile or with kind of like very bright eye and really looking to understand more about the person in front of you, the person in front of you is really going to feel that distance. So it is very, very important that you are aware of how your look and your behavior influence other people, right? So when you show up with a big smile, and then you will show up that you're standing right and looking proud, that it really gives an idea of okay, I want to know what this person was going to talk about. And also another thing that is very important is that you always have to be very aware about how your feelings, right? Because it's very important to be aware on how you feel. And I think maybe you guys have felt it when you go into an exam and in the oral exam, and maybe you're thinking, oh my God, I don't know anything about this, and you can see that from your face, right? It is very clear if the person in front of you can see it. So it's very important that you are aware of how you feel, because you have to understand how to manage this kind of thing. So I had a lot of meetings in which before entering, I was thinking, oh my God, this is going to be really, really tough because of this reason or this other reason or this other reason. And then you can read it, and the client will be able to see that and will be able to understand that I'm very defensive. But if you take a step back and you think, okay, Beatrice, you know what you're talking about. It's kind of like a prep talk to yourself. Be aware on how you are perceived, right? You can do it. Go ahead and present yourself. So usually that really helps. And also, just be aware of your feeling. It really is really very, very important, because then you can manage it. And then the other part that this awareness is really coupled with self-regulation, right? So kind of considering how your action influence other, but then the self-regulation is also the kind of more externally focused part. So basically how it's kind of how you react and how you impress your reaction on others. So how you react to the different emotions. So let's think about like a silly example. Like we all have those days which we're really down, or which we are a bit more stressed than others. And it happens maybe sometime to you guys that you go in a shop and there's like somebody that is there and is having a massive argument with the shop assistant, right? For really silly reason. And when you see this from outside, you think, oh, that person must be having a very bad day, right? Because there's no point in blowing up so much in front of a shop assistant. But really, that is the kind of example that I want to make for self-regulation. So you have to be able to adapt to your environment. You have to be able to kind of, first of all, understand the feeling that you have, and then kind of regulate and consider how you come across. Again, it's a very simple thing. If you're very nervous, the person in front of you will feel that you're very nervous, right? So your first thing that you have to do is recognize that, to then be able to kind of manage it a bit better. And this skill is also very important, the kind of self-regulation, above all if you manage a team or if you have colleagues in general, is that there's always going to be arguments, right? And they can be very serious or they can be very, very laughable, but there could be some point of tension, and to be able to always kind of not keep your cool is extremely important, because then you would not succumb to emotion. And it's really, really difficult because maybe you are in a meeting and the person in front of you is being very aggressive, and your natural defense is like to kind of, or scream back or being very argumentative against them. But it's so disarming if you actually are very open and very relaxed, because your positive attitude will really end up changing what the person in front of you thinks, right? So I think self-awareness and self-regulation are the most important point of that you have to start from. And it's very hard because all of us have a lot of education in terms of skills, in terms of, and then the skill factor is a very good example. We are always taught things and new concept and new thing that we have to present and to prepare. And when you go to meeting, you have your thing that you're going to say, but nobody really prepares you about how you should feel, how you should behave. And that it's and then it makes it, it's a bit of a more question mark, and really experience is the only thing really that can really help. So another thing that I think about when I think about social intelligence, a bit of a third point, are like the social skill and how you interact with one another, right? And this has to do both for verbal communication and non-verbal communication. Verbal communication, of course, is a bit more straightforward. Like you have to present a certain topic, you present it, you get the feedback, you debate the feedback, right? And the way that you debate the feedback, I think, is even more important than the way that you actually present the arguments, right? But there is non-verbal communication, and that's very tough. And there's a lot of, and that's one thing that I read a lot about in when I was a junior, because I found it always very fascinating, and it really is what the body of the person in front of you tells you. And about their emotional status, about how they feel. So, for example, if you get into a meeting and everybody's sitting like this, right, with the hand back and kind of really sitting back, it means that they're very defensive, right? They kind of don't want to be there, so they already close the door in front of you. But if you try with your body to kind of get closer to them, right, kind of a bit inclined toward them and kind of keep your arms toward them, I think that really helps, because it kind of gives the sign, the indirect sign that you're ready for that conversation, that you're happy to have that conversation, right, and that you really engage into it. And the social skill, which I think is also very important, and it's a bit strange for me to say now because I'm talking all the time and you guys are not asking questions yet, is active listening. I think when you talk with clients, I'm not a very big believer of having a pitch idea or a big presentation or a big PowerPoint with everything written down. I think the most important thing is really to listen what the person has to say in front of you, because everybody would have different priorities. And the most important thing that a salesperson can understand is what's the priority of the person in front of me. And you cannot know that beforehand. You need to actually understand it. You actually need to learn it once you're there. You need to see what that person say, and you need to understand, and you need to kind of try to understand and kind of really apply and be flexible and try to reply to what you think is the real demand. So, and I think, social skills, again, is one of those things that it's really hard. I mean, it's becoming very important in every sort of relationship and in every sort of job, because there is social interaction is so important. But again, it's one of those things that is very hard to learn about, right? Because it's not written in books. So I think maybe all of you can think about like a teacher or a boss that at some point in their career have really made an impact. And if you think about this person, I'm sure that at some point you can also think about what sort of skills he had, like in the social skill. How do you make you feel? It's like when you were at his lesson, why did you find it interesting? Why was he engaging? And you will see that a lot of it is also going to be about the fact that the way that he composed and behaves himself. So also is the way that he moved, and the way that he is a kind of a non-verbal communication. So with his hand, with his body. I mean, I'm Italian, right? So Italians are very known to move their hands a lot. So I'm clearly doing that, but and there's other ways to express also concept. But yeah, I think that's something that very interesting. Then another thing that is very important is also to manage relations around you, and I think that is more important when you think about colleague and working in a team. We are quite a big team now here in my office, and one of the most important thing, and one of the things that I think we're doing well in our group, is that we do get on very well. A lot of us have been working together for many years, and when you have a relationship of trust, it's much easier to work with. So how do you build such relationship, right? And in some way, you really have to try to, in some way, maybe this sounds a bit strange, but you really have to try to select the people around you as well. Like, maybe with colleagues a bit different, it's a bit difficult to select, but with your inner circle, I think it's very important that you try to focus your friendship on people that are usually have a positive vibe, and they yes, I can do it attitude. Because if you surround yourself with a lot of people that very oh, I don't think I can do it, I don't think I can make it, that sort of attitude will really get to you at some point. So it's really important to work in a team, to work in an environment of yes, I can do sort of people, and you can do your part, right, on that. You can be that kind of the central part of it. I mean, my colleagues tell me that I'm always positive, and I think that's not very true, because of course everybody has kind of down moments and all of that. But I always try to look at the positive side. Like, okay, this deal isn't gone. I wasted 3 months of my time. What did I learn out of it, right? Just kind of keep positive. It's like one of those tricks that they tell you, like when you're in the morning and you're having a very bad day and you think the day's gonna be tough, smile at the mirror, because it really is gonna give you a lot more energy. And when I heard it the first time, I thought it was so silly to do that, but then I've started doing it, and it does really make quite a difference to rather than kind of looking at yourself, trying to sort your hair and like looking very down. It does make very big difference. And then another point, which I think is point number 5 by now, is empathy. Empathy, I think, is the main word that is associated with emotional intelligence, which is it can be anything from the ability to understand and share the feeling of other, to the ability to really connect with other. And I think that is like probably the most important skill that I think of all the one we can talk about. I think that's the most important. And the way that I've applied that with client relation is kind of put yourself in somebody else's shoes, right? And I do that a lot with clients. And I do that, when it's a client that I know well, it's much easier, right? But when it's a new client, I always think, okay, if I was the client and I was about to go and meet this person, what do I expect? How would I feel about it? What would be interesting for this person to bring to me? How should I behave, and what can I do? Right. So I always think about pretty much how I will be seen from their eyes. So do I want to come across as very hardworking, or very formal? Do I want to come across as a bit more relaxed? And it's really important that you do your homework in this kind of things, because, and also that I've noticed, it really depends on also the person you have in front of you. I think I worked a lot with Southern European clients like Spanish and Italian, and we are usually very open. When you look, maybe you work with clients from a more Nordic sort of background, then maybe they are a bit more formal, right? So I think that comes, of course, with the experience. But it's really important to try to think what you can bring from the other person perspective. So, for example, for me, and again, this is an example that has to do with my industry, but I think it could be a lot of other industry. I think, okay, I'm meeting this person. This person does energy. What would be the best outcome for me as a client? What would I find very useful? So really trying to, and this is how I understand empathy, right? That's how I try to use, let's say, my understanding of empathy into client meeting, right? Empathy is also important when you work when you're in an office environment or in a school environment, but trying to understand the kind of the various dynamic in the workplace. To understand how people connect with each other and how the social interaction are going. And I think it makes much more sense when you have when you try to always understand why is this person doing that. And a lot of the time I had in my experience with more senior people, sometimes it's very a bit hard for us to understand why certain decisions are made. So to try to reason, to approach that question mark with empathy, that I think is very important, because why would they make this decision? What could be their rationale, right? So really is the point of put yourself outside your shoes and trying to think from somebody else's perspective, because it always adds to your understanding. And then another thing which I find very interesting, and the sixth point I would say, and it's something that I always tell to our junior or in our graduate program, it's the intrinsic motivation and the important. An emotional and intelligent person find motivation for themselves. Right? You don't work for only a money, or you don't work for a reward. Of course, those are great things. And if your boss tells you, oh, you're doing great, your professor gives you a very high mark, of course, that's very motivating, but that cannot be the main source of your motivation, right? You have to be driven by a sort of passion or a need to self-improvement, as opposed to something to an external sort of motivator. As I tell our grad every single year when they come for internship, and they tell me, oh, so how do you like this job, and why would I want to do this, and so on and so forth. And what I tell them all the time is that just think about just look for a job that is interesting for you, because at the end of the day, you will have to spend at least 12 to 12 hours doing that job for a lot of part of your life. So if you have to like it, otherwise you're going to be miserable, and you're actually not going to be very good, right? So and for example, for me, I work in energy, and I found when I was starting my career, the main reason why I liked to work in energy was the fact that of all the things that a bank does, energy is the only one that you can draw. Like, you cannot draw a rate or effects, but you can draw a barrel of oil, right? Or a cargo of LNG or so. And for me, I realized that when I was looking at the paper, or like at The Economist, or like any publication, the stories that were the more interesting were the stories about geopolitics, or were the stories about new technology coming out on the renewable sector, right? So I thought, okay, I would love my job to actually force me to read those news rather than other news, and that kind of keeps me motivated on those days that maybe you're just kind of really want to sit in and just pass your day. And don't feel the most, let's say, efficient. Those days, the fact that your job, you can find some motivation in yourself because you're working in something that you have found the passionate part of your work, that makes it much easier. It's a bit like playing a sport. Like, I don't know a lot of you, but I've never won any sort of medal for sport. I'm not a very sporty person, but I do enjoy spinning now, right? Or I do enjoy yoga. Nobody even tells me I don't have to win anything, but I just do enjoy I do enjoy doing it, and that is, the intrinsic motivation is extremely important, because it helps you it helps you drive yourself to achieving goal, find better way to do it, but also makes you a much easier person to work with. Because I think the most important thing that I've learned in all this year is that if you enjoy what you do, and if you have passion for what you do, and you have the genuine interest of the person in front of you, that person sees that and appreciate that kind of feedback. And there are it's something which has to do with your behavior, which has to do with your voice, which has to do with anything about your body behaves. But that kind of passion and that kind of drive really come up very, very strongly in the person in front of you. So that's why I've started all this list of things from self-awareness, because you have to be aware of where your passion is, what you're good at, what you're not good at, And then from there, you can start building all the other points in your career and in the building of relationship with your client, the building of relationship with your team, or your professor, or with your friend. So I hope that I kind of managed to make some sense out of my message, and how being emotional and trying to use emotion and understanding of social skill and social behavior can improve your relationship with clients. I'll be very happy to answer any question that you guys might have, both about my experience or maybe anything I said if you need more clarity.
Hey, thank you very much, Mrs. Beatrice. That was a very powerful session. In fact, myself, I've learned a whole lot of things, and I believe everyone here has also learned a lot of things. So now we'll be taking questions. Before that, I just want you to just let her know she's with the Sabi again. Just drop some fire emoji, drop the fire emoji, drop the fire emoji, drop the virtual claps. Yeah, I can see it. Thank you, Grace. Married. All right. Okay, it's about time to take question. It's about time to take questions. So we're going to be taking some questions now. So personally, I want to appreciate you. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for coming. That was a wonderful session from you. I've learned a whole lot of things, empathy, relating with people, and how you can take yourself out of your own shoes and trying to be in others' shoes so that you can talk at a level that they will get to understand. Thank you very much for that wonderful session. All right, I'm here. If you have any question, please, we'll be taking question. We'll be taking a few questions before we're going to be rounding up the session. Okay, you have any question, you can use the chat feature, or you use the raising of hand feature if you are watching from Zoom. All right, question about international opportunities, because our speaker today is someone who has, a very fast knowledge background. She's worked in the US, the UK, and she works with the Bank of, just ask your questions and okay. It's an honor having you here,
I have a question here. Considering the people we have here, how can young Africans access international opportunities? For example, internship in places like Bank of America, Google. Are there open opportunities for Africans to access, and how can we go about it?
I am not an expert on this, but I believe, at least for ourselves, we have an international website where we accept, where you can apply for internship. And we have a very wide, in my team, I speak for myself, I don't speak for the bank, but we do really appreciate different backgrounds. So if banking is something that is of interest for any of you, we all the banks have a very big usual graduate program, summer intern graduate program, where you can learn a lot about different parts of the business, from markets to investment banking to other bits and pieces, and all the details are always online. So if you go on the main website, you will find all the way that you can apply. And across my career, I've seen people from an extremely different background. And usually that is very, very welcome for us, because we really do thrive with diversity. So if you guys want to have a go, I'm pretty sure that all the major banks have a very detailed website on how to apply for a graduate program. And I'm sure Google and other companies have the same. I think there is a lot of focus into recruiting talent.
Okay. I hope that answers your question, Ms. Victoria. Because I have another question here. I have a question.
Yeah, please proceed. Thank you so much, B.
That's okay.
All right. I have a question. You just taught us on emotional intelligence as a tool to connecting with our audience and sponsors. But there is this happened to me some times ago. I was trying to sell a vision for someone who was supposed to be let me say a sponsor, but it wasn't just getting it. Like I tried on my best to even convince, but at the end of the day, I ended up losing the deal because I was not able to. I don't know, how can we, when relating to people, when talking to people, be it sponsors, audience, or clients, and how can we shatter their objection? I don't know. He had this type of objection that he doesn't just believe in my vision. So what I'm trying to sell for him, he doesn't just believe in it at all. How can we shatter objection of our audience and can be a sponsor? So thank you very much, man.
Yeah, that's very tough, and a lot of us have been in that situation. Like, you have a project and you think this idea is great for the person in front of you, and that person just said no, and you kind of create this wall, right? And you're not going anywhere with that conversation. So I think I will try to take a step back and probably not be quite as direct. So kind of trying to turn the issue around and kind of pose it as a question, right? Kind of try to get their feedback on the points. For example, you have this idea of you have this project and you think this is very great for them, and the answer is no. So then go the other side. So what would be a project that you think it could be interesting for you, and what would make a project interesting for you? So then, and in that point with that question, you're not pushing your idea, you're gathering information from them. And then from the way that they answer that question, then you can maybe try to understand the way that what they value. So maybe you mention this point and this other point when you ask them what would make that project interesting for you. And then because you mentioned this couple of points, then you can say, okay, maybe then I have to think about this point when I make my proposition. How does my proposition applies to those concepts that are important to the client, right? And it's a bit difficult to reason when you don't have an example in mind, but really you have to try to make the concept come from them, right? So don't confront them, don't pitch an idea, just ask what would make an idea interesting to them, and then kind of try to model your pitch around this feedback. It's all about active listening and really trying to adjust your proposal to the person in front of you. And of course, a lot of us here knows anyhow, there is not a magic way to always have clients saying yes. I had loads of no's, but from the no, you can probably learn more than from the yes, because then if you ask feedback and you ask concept, it was like, what would that make it interesting? Then you can change your proposal that's slightly bit to make it more appealing. And also the person in front of you, it will be thinking, oh, wow, this person is listening to me. It's taking at heart what is important to me. So you know what? I'm going to try to help them. Usually that can work. But of course, there's always stubborn people out there that might just say, no, there's no conversation, not give you anything. There's a lot of those. And those are really tough to crack, I must say. But usually, trying to get their point of view before yours is more interesting, because whenever you pitch some specific idea, you might come across as quite aggressive. It's like, what would this, and the other person would think, why would this person know that they know better than me? And that happened a lot to me because I started working very, very young and working with people maybe a bit more experienced than me. So if I had come across as the person pitching ideas and kind of telling them what to do, it would have been really hard for me, because a lot of these people have much more experience than me. So the other way around is, okay, what is important to you to make an idea good for you? What would be the concept? And then from there, I kind of think about it and I come up with a new idea that embrace those concepts. So kind of turn it around them a bit and make it yours.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. We have, I think, 2 questions in the chat session, but I think this question interests me a lot. So I hope you can hear me clearly, right?
Yes, please, we can hear.
All right. Grace is asking. Grace said, thanks for your session, Beatrice. In your career journey, have you had any challenge with any colleagues who are deliberately out to frustrate you for one thing or the other? How do you apply emotional intelligence in such a situation? I understand that we need to put ourselves in the individual's position, but still, some persons will act strange. how do we treat such situation, especially in our work environment? You know, this could be a boss, a superior, a colleague who just wants to frustrate you. How do you handle such people?
Yeah, no, that has happened to all of us. There's always a difficult person out there. A lot of it. So I think about it two ways. A lot of the time when someone is extremely difficult, for the sake of being difficult, I found that as there is a big insecurity behind it. A lot of insecurity behind it. Like, it's like when a person is very aggressive, then it's usually there's a lot of sadness, of insecurity behind them. So I recognize that. I think it's a matter of approach. I always start from the point of view that all of us want to get on, right? And then if some of us does not want to get on, what's behind it, right? Is that maybe there is some a lot of people might be shy, so they come out as very cold. A lot of people might be very unmotivated or unhappy, and then they come out as very aggressive. And I think of all the points that I made, I think empathy and self-regulation are the most important. You cannot fight fire with fire, right? So because if you have a person in front of you on your team, very, very aggressive, that is really beating down your idea and being very aggressive and bully about it, then you will, it's my opinion, right? This is not science. It's not my opinion. So you might agree or disagree, but I don't think you go anywhere in fighting that fire with more fire, right? You have to stand your ground. I'm not saying you have to be dismissive. I'm not saying that you have to diminish yourself, but you have to really self-regulate yourself, not to become that person. Because usually when somebody starts screaming and you're being very aggressive, you tend to become very, very defensive. And when that happens, there's no way that you can communicate. But one thing my husband taught me, actually, that I found it very helpful for me. I had it was with a colleague. I found him, as you said, very aggressive, right? And I was thinking, wow, why we had a conversation and he was very defensive, very aggressive, and I thought, wow, why is it being like this? I mean, we're discussing work. We're both working on the same team. There's no need to do that. And I was asking my husband, I was like, is it, what don't I understand, right? Why is it being so defensive? In my eyes, I haven't said anything, right? And then he told me, wait a moment and wait for a couple of hours, a little bit after, and then ask him, how is he doing, right? How is he doing? Are you okay? Because you came out as very aggressive in that situation. And usually, and the person, at least in this instance, it really melted. He was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was having this and this in my head, and I'm sorry I came out like that. And from that moment on, we never had a disagreement. So a lot of the time, I think is important, first of all, not to take things personally. Above all, in a work environment, it's extremely important that you put work first. And if there's a disagreement, it might be between, for us, we work sales and trading, and there might be sometimes some attraction. So it's very, very important not to take it personally, right? It's about work. It's not about you as a person. If somebody is aggressive to you, it might not be towards you. It might be his issue, right? So don't take it personally, but also regulate yourself, be calm and very composed, and maybe come back afterwards and say, so what was that about? How are you doing? And that is so disarming, because it's very likely that the person that was aggressive to you knows it was being very difficult. And if it's after a professional relationship, it would find it disarming and extremely refreshing that you're giving them that opportunity to kind of make things equal. Now, it's not going to work all the time, because some people are just difficult. And at that point, you just stand your ground and just be the better person. Don't be aggressive, because that never gets you anywhere. And just have to cooperate like that. But never take it personally. Don't fight fire with fire. And really try to differentiate the moment from the person. And just, to me, it worked really very well the day after, going back to the trader and telling him, how are you doing? Is there any issue? Because it came out quite strong that day, and he was not mortified, but he was kind of, wow, okay, I really did not behave well. And I think from that moment on, he has been really trying really hard to do better. I hope that helps.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I hope that helps the person that asked the question. You can let me know your
It
view.
helps. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We have another question here. I think this might be our last question for this session. This person is asking, are there any recommendation on the specific emotion or skills to work on as an introvert who speaks fluently only when prepared to face a client? I mean, how can this person appear bold when caught unaware?
Okay, well, you will find maybe hard to believe, but when I started working, I was very, very shy and a very big introvert as well. So I completely can sympathize with that. I think if you're an introvert, you have to know I think it goes back to the self-awareness point, right? Maybe communication might be a bit more difficult and you're not an open person naturally. But for me, at least what worked is that in my job, I know what I know and I know what I don't know, right? And that self-awareness of what I can talk about and what I shouldn't talk about, it really makes a difference, because in the field of things that I know, right, then I am very comfortable, I'm very confident, and I can talk, right? And really has been a very big learning process for me to approach things in such a way in which I can say, I don't know, but I will look it up for you, right? So I think as an introvert, I would really recommend really trying to get to know yourself better. And I know it might sound a bit cheesy, but self-awareness and self-motivation are extremely important. And if you know, okay, I know very well this subject, and I want to share about this subject, then I think you can find more strength and trying to be more open and discuss much more about a specific subject. Also, don't forget, a lot of the time, you always talk to people that more or less are your peer. Like, I'm your peer in so many ways, because because I was so nervous before having this conversation with you guys. I was thinking, oh my God, am I going to be good? And you think about it, like, a lot of the time when you go into a meeting or a work meeting, the person in front of you might be as nervous as you are, right? So try to harness this kind of feelings. I think, okay, I'm not the only person that is nervous here, but I know what I know, and I can do well about that, right? So try to put those things together. Try to also, it kind of goes back at the empathy point, but also the putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. Try always to take a step back and try to understand that a lot of, you're dealing with humans like yourself, and at the end of the day, all of us want to try. I think all of us want to try to get on with the person in front of you, and so if you have that, I find that feeling is a big leveler, because then you're like, okay, I'm a person, he's a person. Both of us might have been nervous for certain things, maybe less nervous for some and more nervous from other, but we are the same. We're kind of at the same level, right? And I think that should also give you a bit more comfort when you find it maybe a bit difficult to start presenting. And maybe when it's the first time, I remember when I started, I was so overwhelmed, right, with all the information that we were given and all the things that we were doing. And as I said, I was much more of an introvert, I guess, and naturally I'm much more of an introvert. I know my strength. Self-awareness, I know what my strengths are, so I can talk about those things, but naturally I'm not the most social, I guess, in a room. And I remember I started by writing things down. There was a basic scheme of bullets of things that I wanted, that I prepared on, and I knew if everything goes badly and I got stuck and I got scared and this person gets aggressive, I can go back to these points. And I learned those points by heart. And now 10 years after, I still know those points. I very rarely go back to those, right? But this the security that of having those points on the back of your head as a kind of a fallback, it really helped me to kind of, I know that worst case scenario, I go back to those. So maybe that could be of a help when you think when you plan your next meeting or your next conversation with a team member or something.
Okay. Thank you very much for that wonderful answer. We have another question from Peter. Peter is asking, in a teamwork, how do you relate with two kind of persons, two kind of people? One likes talking, while the other doesn't like talking too much. How do you relate with these two different persons in a working environment?
Let me think. Well, I think it's finding the common ground and trying to understand. Again, I think it's about the social kind of, I always go back to the same point, that kind of the more kind of empathy and understanding the person in front of you. We have, in our team, we have very different personality, and we have same situation where some people are chatting all the time, and which sometimes too often, and some other people are very, very quiet. And I think it's a matter of really trying to involve everybody in the team in certain conversation. Of course, not all the time. We don't have to exchange opinion all the time. But when we are maybe in big meetings in which we have to discuss about our future as a team, about what is important for us and what we should be discussed, then it is very, very important that everybody has a voice, right? So really is trying to motivate the person. And again, my approach is never to be very abrupt about it. So it's not like, so what do you think? Like, just put the person in the spotlight, because if it's a very introvert person, to our point before, or that person doesn't like talking too much, they might get very anxious, and then you wouldn't get really an answer through a real answer or a good answer through them, and it would just put them in a very uncomfortable position. So I would always kind of trying to get opinions and kind of like, what do we think about this? I think this. Would you agree? And if you start from that point of view, like, would you agree to this point or disagree to this point? You offer them, the person doesn't speak quite so much, a yes or no sort of answer. And then you, yes or no sort of question. And then you can start building from there, right? So kind of give them an easy in, if you will, to kind of get some information out of them. And then really, again, when we were discussing about a difficult person on your project, it was really trying to, actively involve them into the conversation in terms of trying to get their point of view. And if they don't like to speak very much, maybe just try to limit, don't address them with very, very open, wide question, because you're not going to get that much out of them. But try to address, okay, this is my opinion. Would you agree about this? Or what would you do? Why would you disagree about this other one? So really try to put that effort to involve and create an order, right, in the team. So then you make sure that the person that likes to talk a lot doesn't talk the whole time that you have a team meeting, because that's not going to be helpful for anybody to only hear one opinion. You have to exchange. So maybe every question that you have on a specific topic, try to make sure that every person has a say, right? And maybe some people that will not naturally jump into the conversation, you as the person that is managing the conversation, you have to try to get them into the loop. Say, okay, maybe team member A have said this, and I found it very interesting. What would you think specifically? And so then you manage the conversation across the different people. So then you don't have a person to speak more than another one, and you make sure that everybody feels involved. But it's very difficult. We had some colleague like that, and it's very difficult. But I find that even people that don't talk very much, when they are comfortable, and then when they know they are in a safe environment, they tend to start to talk more, because they are safe, and they feel safe, and they feel appreciated. So I think to create that environment as a team leader is the most important thing. And you don't have to be a team leader because it's written down that you're the head of the team. You can be a team leader just being another person in the team, but just kind of trying to make sure that everybody is comfortable, and try to, manage, if there is no order in the conversation, kind of manage to create some sort of order, some sort of open discussion.
Okay, thanks very much for that wonderful answer. I have learned a lot, finding the common ground and trying to create order if you are the leader. Thank you very much. Our time is fast spent, but I just want us to answer this question, because this person has sent it a very long time ago. This person is asking, I'm a 400 level student of accounting, and I wish to apply for scholarships for my master's immediately after graduation. Although I've been trying to hook some down, but none has been fertile. How do I earn scholarship? Probably this is because I've got no mentor. I want to know how I can get this scholarship. Thank you very much. That's the question.
I don't know anything about scholarship. Sorry, I don't really know how to help on that. However, I met Victoria through a project which is about mentoring. So maybe, so I would think Victoria might be a much better person in terms of this advice on how she found our mentorship program. So I'm not going to be very useful on this point. I apologize, but I think Victoria would have quite a lot of knowledge about international mentorship programs,
okay.
and she will be able to help more. There's a lot of things online about that, but unfortunately, I don't really know about scholarship. Apologies.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a very wonderful session. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation. Sabi Gang, I want you to unmute and bring in some energy.
I'm sorry, Sam. If he has 1 more minute, please. There's a question that has been reoccurring in the chat. I don't know, we've been missing it. If you just have like 1 minute more to answer the question from Grace.
I haven't seen such a question. If you can see it over there, Victoria, can you just help me with that? Okay, this is the question. So please, Ma, can you explain more on how one's action and behavior interact with people?
Can you repeat? Sorry, I didn't understand that. Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Okay, please, can you explain more on how one's action and behavior interact with people?
So I think what she's trying to ask is, how can your actions and behavior affect your interactions with other people? Is there a way you're supposed to behave? Is there a way you're supposed to act that will now influence other people around you?
So I think, no, that's a very good question. And it's like the $1 million question, right? And I think my advice, and again, this is just me, is to be always very open and very, to position yourself as a person which looks very approachable, right? As like I found that like in client meetings, if you go in, as I was saying at the beginning, with a big smile, not like silly big smile, but like a kind of a smile, with a bigger smile, with a body language that invite the communication, right? It's kind of like a kind of welcoming the communication and welcoming the feedback. I found that is usually seen very positively, and it makes people much more at ease, right? If we were to spend all our meetings like all sitting up, taking our hand down and very, very formal, that makes for extremely formal meeting. And maybe some people would prefer that sort of attitude. And of course, it's going to be up to you to understand what meeting you're in. But a lot of the time, as I was saying, people just want to create some sort of connection with the person in front of them. So to show up as a person that is eager to understand more about the person in front of them, right? Then it usually usually make the person in front of you really looking forward to tell you more information, right? So really trying to take a genuine interest in the person in front of you or the people in the meeting. Again, my point of view is always like a person and with the client, right? But even if I think about our team meeting, everybody has a voice that wants to be heard. So really, if you can position yourself as becoming the person that wants to listen to that voice, then you create a proper environment of cooperation. So I would suggest really trying to be always very open, not being defensive, not being aggressive, but really open to listen. And and one thing also I find it very important is that if you have not understood what the person in front of you has said, take the time to understand it, right? There is no point into pretending that you have understand everything. Just take the time, because if I'm saying, if a client explain me something and I don't understand, I'm like, okay, can you explain to me? I think this is very, very important. I really want to understand what you need. Help me help you, right? And I think that attitude is very, very appreciated.
Wow. Thank you very much for that wonderful contribution. we won't be able to answer more questions because time is up. And okay, let me check if we still have any questions so that we can answer them. All right, we have no question. Thank you very much for coming, Beatrice, and I'm very grateful. I personally have learned a lot from this. I really learned a lot. Thank you very much for coming. I know that everyone also learned. Also, Sabi Gang, just unmute, and let's appreciate our speakers. Give me the clap, give me the virtual claps.
Thank you very much, guys. Been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
a lot.
much.
Let's
Bye-bye.
pause for a picture, please. Everybody turn on your camera so that at least we can have an e-picture with our speaker for today. If you can, please turn on your camera. Thank you so much, B.
Thank you. My pleasure. Anytime. I'll be very happy to join you guys if you want to have more sessions. And if I can share my experiences, my pleasure.
Thank you very much. We are very
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, Sabi Gang. That was a Sabi session from Beatrice. Thank you very much for joining. And I hope you learned one or two things because I really learned a lot. My jota is full here. So the next session is going to be by 5:15 p.m. It promises to be as exciting as ever. And 5:10 p.m. just to make sure you are here with your writing materials. Don't go anywhere. This is the biggest event, the most Sabi event in town, brought to you by the most Sabi Gang. Okay, sure you know now. 5:15 p.m. See you here. Thank you very much for joining us now. See you by 5:15.